Jakob, maybe quickly introduce yourself.
No, I met them on YouTube, but that's it.
Okay. So now you're getting Jakob live. Okay, guys, then I guess we will all jump in case any of you are planning on watching the Super Bowl on Super Bowl Sunday. Okay. So tonight in the webinar, or today for you guys, we are going to focus on collaborative learning. So just Smadar humor, as you've gotten her humor already. Little comic strip there. And we're going to ice break tonight on a Padlet, since you guys worked on a Padlet already, and we're going to come back to taking a look at the Padlet and how it's used in collaborative learning. So we'll use it here a little bit, and just think a little about infrastructure in your institutions. EdTech, what does it take? What needs to be done before we can really get started? What needs to happen before the actual devices go out? What needs to happen with students? What needs to happen with other teachers? And other kind of concerns or projections that might get in the way of EdTech, and perhaps even some solutions. So if you guys want to take a few minutes, click onto the Padlet. Oh, I apologize.
You have to share it first.
Yes, I know. In all my teaching now, I'm doing on tiny URIs and tiny URLs, and I haven't done this in a while. So, yes.
So now can we go on, or do we have to click on something else?
Go right on the chat, and the Padlet is there. Click right on it, and you should be brought to this Padlet you can come right onto.
Okay. Where is the chat? Oh, wait, chat?
Go to
I
chat.
can't really see the chat.
On the bottom, there's a little...
Oh. Let me just mute. Okay, you'll find your chat on the bottom, and in the chat is the URL for the Padlet. Does everybody see it?
Yeah.
Oh, here's my chat.
There you go. I put it there again. So if you look in the bottom of your screen, you have a little thing there with like a little bubble and 3 dots in it that says chat. And in the chat now, you have a link to a Padlet. If you go into that chat and click on the link to the Padlet, it will bring you to that Padlet that will be up on my screen in a minute.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so everyone should be seeing this Padlet now. And you can click on
Yeah, but me, it didn't work with Edge, only with Firefox, by the way.
Oh, really? It should work in Chrome. It should work in... I don't know why. I've never had problems with Padlet.
Do we have to log into Padlet or anything?
You do not have to log into Padlet. You have the link there. If you click on the link that's in the chat.
Yeah, I came up on my screen. I was wondering if I was supposed to do anything with it. But I have it.
No, all you have to do here is you double click on the plus in any of the columns, and then you can start to type.
Oh, see, I don't have any plus. That's why.
Yeah, me too.
I
Same
did something
problem.
wrong.
No pluses.
Yeah.
Are you on this Padlet? It looks like this. That's,
Right, it doesn't look exactly like it does on your share screen.
okay, that's very
Let's say it looks exactly the same besides the plus.
Yeah.
okay. That's very unusual. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what's going on.
Could you maybe it has to do with the settings? Did you make the settings that everyone can?
Yes.
Everyone with the link could add.
Okay, guys. You know what? So sometimes it's not a terrible thing, because sometimes we have to do this in EdTech. Sometimes something slips. There's a glitch and things don't work 100%. perfectly. I reloaded it to see if that makes a difference. I'm just going to, I'll double check the settings, but okay.
Wasn't it under collaboration?
Yeah, no. It's fine. It's in a public setting, so everything should have been fine. But okay, so let's go through it a little bit verbally, so everybody can just kind of participate verbally. So, what has to happen before you give out devices in your classroom?
Have set rules?
Okay, so kind of set rules. We're going to get to that. We're going to get to that actually this evening and something in a little bit. Netiquette or kind of set rules. Okay, that could be one thing. What else has to happen?
Well, you have to make sure that, everybody can get on the devices, that there's internet. Maybe you have permission.
No, Laura, you have to have internet. You have to have working internet. You have to make sure of internet. Anything else that has to happen before you can think of bringing EdTech into your classrooms?
I think, can you see, I don't see me anymore. Can you see me?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I don't see me, but okay. I'd say just like I have to know just in the school, like, or how it works. Like, how do you get the iPads? And also just for teachers, I know this seems silly and it's part of my like whole challenge of EdTech, but like, how do you use an iPad? Like, I don't have an iPad. I have a Kindle and I'm not so EdTechy. So like, really just how am I going to use it? How do I log on? Like, are there passwords? Like I know it's like very basic, but just like how to use it and how do I get them and how do I get them into my classroom and do I have to sign them out and those kind of logistical things.
Okay, so absolutely. So as an institution, whatever our schools are, institutions are, we need to know that we have Wi-Fi and we need to know that we have devices. When we start working with our colleagues or with teachers, we have to know that teachers know how to use the devices and teachers know how to use the apps or whatever it is we're using. And what about in terms of students?
Maybe they need a login, maybe they need permission from families.
Okay, so students, we might want to think about what kind of exposure we want to give them to the internet. Do we want to put any kind of blocks? Do we want to put any kind of limits? Do we want to work with apps? I think most of the apps that you guys have been using so far do not require logins. Most of the apps we start with more basic don't require logins. As we go on and things, students might use more sophisticated apps where they do require logins. So we want to think about how that affects our learning. We also want to think sometimes about the purpose of our learning vis-a-vis our students. Is it for the students to be creating something? Is it what we're going to focus on today for the students to be collaborating? Or where are we coming from, where are we going with the EdTech that we're using? Okay, so we have to think from an institution point of view. We have to think about our students. We have to think about our colleagues. What other concerns might we have in bringing EdTech into our schools?
Filter, from my point of view.
Filter, absolutely. What we're exposing them to, limits, absolutely. What's the big one, guys, that all of you have? We all have it in all of our institutions.
Technical problems.
Okay, technical problems. Absolutely technical problems, but I wasn't even thinking that technical problems and how we're going to look at flexibility and encouraging flexibility in our staff and our students. How about money, our budget? We have to know, right? What kind of budget do we have in terms of devices? What kind of budget do we have in terms of the apps that we're going to be using and things that we're going to be passing on for? Okay, so this just kind of gives us a sense even of how Padlet, if we had filled this Padlet out beautifully now with all of your ideas and suggestions, it would be a nice collaborative board. Some of the things we need to think about as educators in bringing EdTech into our institution. Okay, the next Padlet, this time you guys get on much more easily. All right, you guys were a bit creative, quite a bit creative in between last session and this session. And the first sample that we're going to look at tonight is a Google form that Gabby created on the sale of GoSave. And it's absolutely gorgeous. I'm going to give it to you guys in the chat so everybody can come on to it. Okay, it should be in the chat now. You can all see it, and everybody can find the Google form.
It's not in my chat.
Gabby, you sent, Laura, you sent to me, I think.
Yes, I got it. I got it.
Oh, here we go. So you want us to
Sorry.
click on this Google Forms?
Yeah, so everybody should just click on that Google form, and then you'll come onto this gorgeous form that Gabby created. Gabby, do you want to walk us through the form?
Okay, I had to unmute. Okay, I have to like a little disclaimer because like I told, like I wrote in the yourself, like I am very nervous about doing these kind of things. And after class, like I get off the class and I get really panicky. And then I spent like 3 hours putting this together, which doesn't seem like it would take that long, but I was very proud. I tried to just kind of use a bunch of different things. So I feel proud of it. Okay, so you see you have, it was a little bit like a review. In my high school class, everyone has to record almost every week either a few psukim or a commentary like a Rashi or Ramban. And usually I tell them what it is and they just would send it to me by WhatsApp, but I tried to just kind of like put it also into the form. So you have to put your name, and then this was me, the Vokaroo. I recorded the psukim. Really, I have a few students. This is considered an honors class, but I have a few students who are very not like weak in Kriya. So this was like me reading it so that they could have the appropriate like pronunciation with the vowels in case anyone did that. Then just like for fun, we have this clip, Joseph's Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat, but a little bit of like an assignment also to make sure that like people are watching it is that to then look at the clip and to see what in the clip is actually in the Chumash. I've been trying to get my students to also prepare the pshat of the Chumash like on their own. And what is there something in the clip, you know, something that we do not see that's in the Chumash, but it's absent in the clip. So a lot of my students, you know, wrote, well, we don't see Reuven trying to protect Yosef in the clip, but and they had to quote a pasuk and stick it in those two spots. And then I had this little pictures where they have to choose one which sums up the main reason for the conflict. And this is really just to get a feel of what the students thought. There's really no correct answer. I found it interesting. Nobody wrote that it was a divine plan, because later on I see that that is something that is like an approach, and Yosef himself say that. That is about it.
Sorry, I'm going to mute. Okay, there we go.
Last question was also leading into what will happen next with Yehuda and Tamar for the students to kind of say, like, you don't expect that. So here, what do you think will happen next? Even though you would expect, most students checked 1, 2, or 3, since they're not really so familiar with what happens in chapter 38. But really, there's something like unexpected that will happen that you would not assume, like, you assume the storyline will continue, and there's like kind of a digression. So, you know, that's like kind of what coming ahead. And then the last thing is that they can record. I had one student who used the Vokaroo to record, or, you know, everyone else kind of just used their own way. They either emailed to me or they WhatsApp it to me, but it was on there as like a reminder that, and it was part of the form.
Okay. Gabby, this is gorgeous. And I just want to take a minute and like toot your horn a little bit and just show some of the things you really did in a really amazing way. And if it took you 3 hours, when you keep doing it, it will take you 10 minutes, like in 3 months. But it does take a long time in the beginning. First of all, you picked a gorgeous like background picture that really sets the mood and right away captures everyone with visual learning. You use the recording in the Vokaroo beautifully to let your students hear the text, and then you right away shot for your students to be analyzing and evaluating the text. And you used a stimulating video clip to have them do that, rather than just asking them questions. And you could have put it out there in a question and they could have sent you a response, but you did it in a way that you got them to a higher level of thinking right away in a very engaging and fun manner and with variety. And then you continue to use visual learning, but really forcing them to evaluate the story, synthesize the story, shoot for higher level thinking about the story. So really, you use this Google form to aim your students for a much higher level of thinking than a regular discussion about the text, or than just simply asking them questions about the text. And certainly continued along those lines when you had them have to predict what's going to happen next. And recording here with the Vokaroo remember something gorgeous about the Google form is once your students hit submit, you have their responses and you have a recorded record that you can use from the beginning of the year till the end of the year to continually evaluate your students and their reading, which is awesome because that's at your fingertips for the entire year for all of your students. And you could even have added one more little question after this Vocaroo of having them self-evaluate how they felt they were reading the text and keep a record of their own self-evaluation as well as your evaluation of how they're reading the text. So you hit it out of the park with so many things on this Google form. Really, really beautiful use of the Google form. Does anyone else have anything, any comments, any ideas about this Google form? If you want to unmute and...
I just wrote in the chat. I think using such a video as Gabi did is very, very educational. It's because you learn to look also critically at what you see. You know, the example I brought is Prince of Egypt in comparison to what is written actually in Chumash Shemot, what is written maybe in a midrash. So to see the different levels of the text, midrashic sources, and then what Disney does for the story, for example, yeah, that's something I like very much. I did it in Tanakh too, and I think it's very, they like it. I mean, they really loved it, and it's high level thinking because they really have to delve into the text, look at every detail. It's not just being passive and watching at this video, enjoying. It's engaging. I don't know how to think. It's definitely very engaging.
Yes, really beautiful, really nicely done. Okay, so just to take a quick look, and it's a little bit different than what you guys looked at with the recording tools with Madar this year, or last week. But Yaakov shared, he's done a lot of animation and use of recording tools, and shared this Evertune, which I'm not sure why that is not. 1 second.
You have to leave the presentation mode.
I don't think we went over it. Is Evertune a new tool?
We can go over it. And you know what? In the interest of time, Evertune is not a tool that you went over, and it's more of an animation tool than a recording tool. So I was just going to share it with you guys just because we didn't have an actual recording sample, but we're going to go on to look at another recording sample. As you guys get more comfortable using some of the recording apps, having your students use recording apps that also allow them to animate them can really create amazing learning pieces, learning tools, as well as collaborative learning tools. Okay, so moving a little bit away from the Google form and from the learning that you were shooting for last week and recording tools into collaborative tools. What's changed over the years in our school model or the way we're teaching today? What are some of the things that are different from, you can see these old pictures, the little red schoolhouse, the one-room schoolhouse.
Well, everything is very much more personalized. I mean, there's much more attention to, you know, the different, just diversification of students in the class.
Okay, definitely diversification of students in the class, individualized learning. What else?
And collaboration.
Collaboration, we hope.
In some institutions.
In some institutions. Anything else?
I feel like in these pictures, what I feel like the old school, or even I think when I went to school, I never felt like I was very interested if I thought it was interesting as the student. Meaning like the teacher was there to tell over information and I was there to learn it, and hopefully I would do a good job as the student learning it. But I feel like as the teacher today, it's always in the forefront of my mind of, will my students find this interesting? That is like, or how can I make it, even though I have the topic or the curriculum, like how am I going to make it engage, like interesting in, you know, for the student, which I feel like in these pictures, it wasn't such a priority.
I don't think student-driven learning even entered the window. Yes, student-driven learning was absolutely not a part of the process, and Gabi, a very important piece of what we're trying to do with collaboration and with EdTech in our learning. Okay, so I know you guys looked at a little bit of Bloom's taxonomy in the first lesson we did. So if you have to step back and say, which piece of Bloom's taxonomy, and I would even add something up at the top, I always like mine to have a different kind of head of the, or a different main piece, which part of Bloom's taxonomy do you think your students most enjoy?
Oh. Depends on the student, but.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, it depends on the students, but if you had to generalize, which, again, going back to what Gabi was said, student-driven learning, and where the students are most interested in what engages our students the most, what is your experience as educators? Where do you find that your students are usually most engaged? Is it when you're standing up in front of the room and giving over knowledge, or the students are expected to learn knowledge or to learn some facts, or is it at a different piece? And I would even top it, not with evaluation, but with creation. So Yaakov, were you saying that's where your students are going, or were you saying, yes, you would agree with me, we put creation at the pinnacle?
No, I mean, if you have to generalize and let's say if you would ask the student to just make the lesson for himself, so he is actually creating the lesson. That's where he's going, right? But yeah, that's generalizing. But I do think that certain students need more of a frame, you know, for them creation is too big. So going a bit down in this pyramid is for certain students needed.
Okay, or perhaps if we put it differently, parameters and guidance are needed, meaning specific instructions or directions are needed for some students in order for them to be able to create. Okay, does anyone else have a place that they would place as most enjoyable or most fun for your students?
I think it starts with application and then it just goes up.
Okay, I think that was a very nice frame, Lori. Application is where your students begin to kind of put themselves into the lesson. So I would argue if we could kind of flip Bloom's taxonomy and have as our base goal or as our main goal that we want to bring our students to creating, which doesn't mean that we're giving them a blank piece of paper and a paintbrush and saying create a masterpiece. It's that at some point, as Lori said, starting to apply application, starting to really take the material and in some way to internalize that material and to be able to do something with it. And as Jakob pointed out, and I think Gabi had said, different students are going to be able to do that on different levels. But if our goal is to get everyone in some way to be part of that creative process, we're taking Bloom's taxonomy and instead of thinking we're starting with giving them knowledge and maybe we'll get to that creativity, we're starting with the idea of we have to be going through a creative process in some way. And we're going to be able to get to all those other pieces or include all of those other pieces in our creative process. So some people don't like this idea of a pyramid and prefer kind of the blooming orange or kind of a round, continuous circle of learning. Meaning, I think Jakob said, and I've heard Jakob say it in other places also, sometimes you have to have basic knowledge to be able to create. So it kind of all has to work together and go together in kind of a wheel but it should all be emphasized. We often, as teachers or as educators, get stuck on that knowledge piece or the remembering piece, and we don't move around the wheel or the orange. Anyone else like the orange model more than the pyramid model?
I haven't seen it before, but I do like it because I think it gives you more flexibility in terms of movements.
Okay.
Yeah, me too. I've seen the pyramid a lot, but I was always a bit bothered because it just doesn't really work.
It doesn't, right.
Doesn't work as a pyramid.
It doesn't work because when we say create, Yaakov, you always hit on that, and I like how you always come with that practical piece of, you can't really create if you don't have the knowledge, meaning you have to have a certain amount of knowledge to be able to synthesize it and analyze it and move forward and do something with it. So it is kind of this, I think the blooming orange is really like that red schoolhouse. The blooming orange is like more matim for today than the pyramid. Okay, and just an interesting idea to think about. They analyzed learning and learning styles and say that after 2 weeks, we tend to remember 10% of what we read. So if all we've done is read something, we tend to remember 10% of it. 20% of what we actually hear, 30% of what we see, 50% of what we see and hear, of what we're more active, engaged learners with. Now look at that, the jump. 70% of what we say, if we have to take the material and do something with it, and 90% of what we say and then really create, say and do. So I think sometimes as educators, if we have that in mind and we realize the power of enabling our students and empowering our students to take the material we're presenting them with, they really learn it when they're able to do something with it. Anybody disagree with that? Anybody have other ideas about that?
I've seen that before, and therefore whenever I hear a very nice Dvar Torah or something, I try to look for someone just to tell it in order to keep it, to make sure it will stay by me.
Right, right.
I just find it interesting that it says here, right, I don't see the bottom, but I think it said 1961. Is that what it says on the bottom? I can't see the
1969, yeah.
1969.
And that's like so, I mean, it's not so long ago, but you know, it's like a long time that I feel like still, even when I think back on my education, my graduate school education, like so much of it is not say and do, except when you do like practical field work, and that does always stick with you, so that there's that. But I feel like it's just, I don't know, I feel like in our schools, it just takes a very long time to do this.
Isn't that interesting? Yeah, Gabby, that's an amazing point. It's really true. We know oftentimes that it's not just with like when we say ed tech or something that sounds new, that oftentimes it takes a long time to bring the theories that we know into practical use in our classrooms. Okay, so I want us to jump in with the first app we're going to look at today that's really a star to use in collaborative learning. And like the Google form, it's a Google app, so it's the Google slide. You guys all know how to go into the Google form. You find the Google slide the same way, and it's so easy to use. It is not an app that our students have to worry about signing in. It's an app that we can easily share with our students. We can have them be viewing them. We can have them be commenting them. We can have them be editing them. And it's an extremely collaborative app. So I want to show you a couple of samples, and then we're going to get together working on some Google Slides. So the first sample is something that I used in a Hebrew school setting with 7th graders after they learned about the situation of German Jewry. They had learned about the Nuremberg laws and the situation of German Jewry in the 1930s through Kristallnacht. They were asked to, and I will give you this link in the chat now so you can go into this. You know what? I'm not even going to do that. I'm not going to do that to you because I'm just going to take you and show you it as a sample. I'll give you the links to the next couple. So students were asked here to write. They had learned about the Nuremberg laws, they had learned about Kristallnacht, and they had learned about the experience of one individual German family at length. And here they were asked to write journal entries or diary entries. And here's something where students can immediately, I mean, they're creating from the get-go. You can give your students the chance to write, and they can be incredibly creative. And I'll share a few of these slides where these students who were 7th grade Hebrew school students just put themselves right into writing as if they were. So we can look at this one. Dear Diary, yesterday I heard of terrible things happening all around Germany. When I woke up, I was prepared to go to school, but my mother said to stay in bed. Throughout the day, I could hear the adults talking about the Nazis and how they were rounding up Jews. Eventually, night came and I went to bed. During the night, all I could hear was the sound of glass shattering, and I woke up and looked outside, building on that kind of tension and what the emotions and the feelings might have been. Each student just put themselves in a totally different place. This student put themselves in a place where it was Hanukkah and a birthday, and all of a sudden they were looking at presents not being available and foods not being available and friends not being available and hoping that the next year would be better.
How much pre-information did you
Okay, do you want to know how incredible it was? This was the fourth class in a 12-session Holocaust class. What the students learned was they had a class. The first is a class about memory and the importance of memory. The second class began with the rise of the Nazis and propaganda and the Nuremberg laws. And the third class had more about Kristallnacht and the story of a specific family in Germany and their experience, an actual true story, and then options of like emigration and and the story of the St. Louis, of the ship, the St. Louis. Mm-hmm. And then these students were asked to write these journal entries. These students had no background in the Shoah. They are public school students who were in 7th grade. And you see the degree of, first of all, knowledge about what the experience was like, and more important, empathy and relating to, and the ability to create and create from a place of emotion. So with relatively little background and information, when the students were given the opportunity, they really sat down and put themselves and loved the idea. And they had learned about, in the story that they had learned about, it had been a 12-year-old. They had learned about a 12-year-old in a family. We did like the Schwab letter, very, very briefly. So they had learned about the experience of a 12-year-old, and they completely were able to put themselves into the experience. And Google Slide is wonderful because it's very collaborative. As each person is writing and collaborating, everyone then gets to see their work. And then you can comment on each other's work. And the next set of Google Slide sample that I'm going to show you, which I'm going to allow you to go into, is a Google Slide set that was used in a day school in a Tanakh course called Burn Baby Burn. This was actually a slideshow that Smadar used. I'm going to put this into the chat for you, and you'll see how the comments in Google Slide work so beautifully to add a whole nother level of collaboration. So now,
do the students do this? Do the students do this at the same time, or they did it synchronistically?
The students are working both. Some of it was done synchronistically, then it was continued at home. Then it was shared. So you guys all have the link for this slideshow in your chat. So in addition to just coming on it with me, you can go on it yourselves. And you'll see instructions were given to think of a time in the Tanakh when Hashem burnt. And you can see that students placed in text, they placed in pictures, which Google Slides are awesome because it's visual, you can put in text, and you can comment on each other's learning. So it's collaborative in that each student is creating, each student is sharing their creations with another student. In your classroom, you can have more than one student working together on individual slides, and then students can comment on each other's work and respond to their comments. So it has different layers of collaborative learning. And you can look through, I mean, this is a gorgeous slideshow. You, the teacher, can continue to comment.
Now, somebody showed me Google Slides. I just want to ask you a question. They kind of used it as the organizing kind of bucket for their class. So they put like links and to other activities right into the slides.
Lori, look at the slideshow. You see what we're using? We're using Google Slides as the format for our session tonight. Now, these links are right on the slides. So if you're looking at this on the Haiku, you would be able to click on the links. If I wanted you to, I taught a class earlier this evening. At 5 o'clock, I was teaching a Holocaust class. My students get the slideshow, and I give it to them in a hyperlinked in a tiny URL. So they have the actual slideshow with all the hyperlinks, and they just click on. When they want to go on the Padlet, they don't go in the chat. They just click directly on the slides. So you absolutely can use Google Slides as a platform for a class. And you can hyperlink everything in it. You can put your students' work, student samples, any apps or things you want the students to work on. And the slideshow itself, Google Slides, is a great, again, just like you saw Padlet with One Use last week, we're going to look at Padlet this evening as a collaborative learning tool. So Google Slides is multi-purpose also. You can use Google Slides completely as a collaborative learning tool, where your students are creating slides, sharing with each other, commenting on each other. It can be synchronous, it can be a homework assignment, it could be asynchronous, it could be multi-students working on one slide, it could be everybody creating their own individual slide, however you want to use it. So, I mean, I just love this. As a way of, it's brought the, and again, it is not, this was not even just looking at one text and analyzing or synthesizing one text. Here, students have had to go for such a high level of learning of comparing and contrasting all the places they can think of in the Tanakh where Hashem is burning something. So common themes will come out, analysis will come out, evaluation will come out. So it's a great way to get your students thinking and get your students collaborating. Okay, now I'm going to put for you in the chat a slideshow. We kind of touched on this in the very beginning of today in our icebreaker about what do you need when you're going into having EdTech or digital learning going on in your classrooms. And one of the things you need is some kind of a netiquette, some kind of an idea of how your students are going to interact with each other, just like we have in our classroom. Ways that students are going to interact with each other. So I'm giving you now the, one second. I'm dropping for you now in the chat the link to this slideshow. Everybody has that now. We're going to look at the first few slides together. And then I'm going to ask you guys to prepare your own slides on what you think is important in netiquette. And it's very warm, but it's a little bit dusty in Efrat, so the electrical lines are a little slow, and I apologize, my internet is a little slow this evening. Okay, here we go. So you have to think about it in the same way as when you're opening up any kind of learning in your classroom. When you open digital learning, you know, you've opened this digital playground, and if you don't have any kind of netiquette or any kind of an idea or limits or parameters to your digital learning, it's like sending the kids out to recess with no one on recess duty, and we only do that in Israel. Okay, so how do you want to present digital citizenship to your students? That's your task on this slideshow, of creating a slide where you put some kind of a photo or image or picture of digital citizenship your name, and then we're going to comment on each other's slides. So just to, start the juices, we think about some of these ideas that we want our students to be secure, to be responsible, to have privacy, to be social, to collaborate.
Lori, did you share it? I'm sorry for bothering.
Yes, it's in the chat. You don't see it in the chat?
Yeah, it's there.
It's in the chat to everyone, Yaakov. See in the chat here? It's there.
Yeah, but me, the other one, Burn, opens
No,
up.
it's a new one. You should have this one. It's a new one. It's a different one.
Oh.
I just gave it to you again, but it should be there.
Yeah, I believe you. It's just for some reason.
Is it not coming? I will do it again.
1 second. Maybe it comes with me. It looks like as if it's one. So maybe I just copied too much. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So here was Smadar's.
Yeah, it worked now. Yeah.
Citizenship. With great power comes great responsibility. Here was mine. Before you can enter into digital learning, think, is it true? Is it helpful? Is it inspiring? Is it necessary? Is it kind? And those of us who are engaged in teaching online all the time, we always call it, and I think we malign them, we malign 7th grade boys. And we say, well, what about the 7th grade boys who are going to post inappropriate things all the time? And my experience is 7th grade boys are my favorite students. I think they're really engageable and really bright. And I think you just need some guidance. So at Jets, I'm just showing you up on the screen now. This is a copy of something that we use all the time in our classroom. So when we start with a group of going through with our students, what are the really important things we should be thinking about when we're posting? And we emphasize over and over, once you put it out there, it's out there and you can't take it back, even though we use many apps that we can erase and do erase the second we see something inappropriate. And we go over with them the do's and the don'ts in the same way we would for any kind of learning environment to make sure we're working on creating a safe learning environment. So you guys can look at that Jets Etiquette. It's on this slide number 6 here. You can look at the video from Brain Pop about digital etiquette if you want to click into that. And then just write your name on a slide, own a slide, come up with some kind of a picture and some kind of an issue or a way that you want to come at digital learning.
I lost the chat.
One second.
Can I ask a quick technical question, which I feel like is silly? Okay, so I don't really know how to use Google Slides, so I see them, and I see there's like empty ones, 7, starting at 7. How would I just, how do I own a slide and say this is my slide? And
so you see up here on kind of the toolbar, and you see where there's a little T, the text box.
Right.
You click on text box, and let's say we go to slide number 7. Right? Come into slide number 7. You click on text box. You put it here. You have to go to, I'm sorry, you're all the things. You have to go to a color, right? You don't want to be in black. So if you keep going on across the toolbar, you'll see where it says text colors now black. I would put it into white, and we'll write your name, Gabby, okay? So you're there. Now, you can add any text you want, the black, just by, you can make more text boxes down from your name. And when you want to add a picture, you see next to the text box it says image. You can click on image, and it will allow you to either search the web for a picture or upload a picture from your computer. And just if you were to continue along and you were and you wanted to add other things, let's say you wanted to put in a hyperlink to a video or to an app or to something else, you can insert links. See where I am across the top?
Yeah.
So you can click on insert link, and that will allow you to write a text about the link you're inserting and insert any link to anything that you want, an app, a video, anything you want. But again, learning to use Google Slides is like you sat down. It won't take you 3 hours. Like you sat down with the Google form and just moving across. You can change the layout of your slides. You can change the colors of your backgrounds.
All right, you have to play around with it.
Just have to play around with it. That's simply playing around with it. Okay, and guys,
Okay, good.
in the interest of time, so I see some of you have already gone on. I love this. Eating prohibited. Don't eat while online. Turn off all background noises, cell phone, radios, and TV. I love that. We're actually going to leave this as a for you guys to create a sample. There'll be samples that Smadar can use. Well, actually, Shani is working with you guys next week, but there'll be samples when you all create your slides. Shani will be able to use these as samples for next week, and we're going to move along just in the interest of time, because I do want you guys to have some time to look at the Padlet also as a collaborative tool. And I want to share with you, which is really brand new on the Padlet. Even I don't even think Smadar knew about this last week when she was working with you. It came out so recently on the Padlet. So Padlet now has a way of doing voice recording on the actual Padlet. So I'm just going to take you quickly to look at the Padlet and show you how that works. And then I'm going to give you a whole bunch of collaborative Padlets that you guys can pick and choose what you want to look at, and you can just explore them. So this Padlet was again used in that Shoah curriculum with 7th graders. They learn a class about faith after the Shoah and when bad things happen to good people. So at the end of the class, they were asked to have a 2-minute conversation with God about faith after the Shoah based on the story of, can I do that? They learned the story of a couple who experienced the Shoah, the husband who kept his faith, the wife who kind of lost her faith, an aunt who had kind of lost his faith. So they were asked to come on to this Padlet and to have a conversation with God using one of the people they had learned about that day and discussing faith. Why should they believe in God after the Shoah? Or do they believe in God after the Shoah? What do they want to say to God after the Shoah? And what do they think about when bad things happen to good people? So we all know that we double click on a Padlet to write something. And now here is the cool thing. You see these 3 dots over here on the Padlet? So if I click on these 3 dots, it gives me a whole bunch of things that I can now do brand new on the Padlet. I can upload pictures from my camera. I can make a video with my camera and my microphone, and I can upload that here on my Padlet. And I can record a voice. So if I request voice record, all I have to do is right now sitting here, my students can record their conversation with God right here on their Padlet, and it will be posted with literally 2 clicks to get on the Padlet, 1 click to get to the microphone, and then starting to record. And then you have it recorded here collaboratively, everybody's conversation going down in a row, and you can have all your students listen to each other's conversations, comment on each other's conversations, ask questions on each other's conversations. So it's just a very, good thing to know that also very easy, without having to sign into an app, free. You can be using your students recording themselves and each other on Padlet now as well. So that's one way that Padlet can work as a collaborative tool. Now I'm going to ask you guys to come in. How is this different than Lino board? Is it more expansive and flexible now? Okay, so Padlet, you guys started looking at Padlets, I believe, last week. But Padlet is similar to a Lino board in that it's a collaborative learning board. But Padlet has many different ways that you can lay out the Padlet. So you can lay it out in columns. You could lay it out in rows like that, like in a scrolling. So it can be much neater, especially if you have a lot of students commenting on one time on a Padlet. And yes, now Padlet has made itself very unique because you can record on the Padlet, video to the Padlet, use your camera directly to the Padlet very easily. Oh, okay, perhaps you didn't do. I was told you did do Padlet. Perhaps you didn't do Padlet. Okay, so then I'm introducing you to Padlet. Okay, lucky me. So I'm introducing you to Padlet, which is another free app and beautiful collaborative learning board. And if we come on to slide number 14, I'm going to show you guys a whole bunch of samples of the Padlet as collaborative learning. So here's an example. This shows you Padlet in columns. You can make these very neat columns on a Padlet, and when a student wants to comment on a column, like today I had my students looking at quotes. They were looking at quotes from the motivation of different righteous amongst the nations who had saved Jews, and the quotes were what their motivations had been. And they had to pick the quote they most related to and comment on it. So you just click under the comment where you want to write and write. And this organizes things very neatly by comments. And here on this Padlet, students are given, obviously we see, the seasons in Hebrew, and they have these adorable little videos. We'll just look at Choraf since it's Choraf.
נספר פה על הקיץ שהולך ונעלם, מטריות ומגפיים מוציאים מהמחסן. Okay, so you get an idea, and students were asked here, they have to come up with 3 words from the song. And then, if they could, as a bonus, they could come up with like a whole sentence from the song. And then, they have to add as a comment, what's their favorite season and why? And then you can have your students commenting on each other as well. Oh, yes, you know, I thought fall was my favorite season, but you point out the best thing, you know, about the winter. Using key Hebrew words here. So this is just like a very cute, very simple way of using the Padlet for Hebrew language. This Tu B'Shvat Padlet again has students. This is a little more in-depth and a little more collaborative for students, but they have to come up with hashtags about 2 of their favorite mentions. They're looking at Teva, at nature, related to Tu B'Shvat, nature as it appears in Jewish literature. So they go with the famous Choni HaMa'agal, they go with the example of the dove of the Yonah after the flood, and they have to look at Bal Tashchit and comment again. This is done in columns. Good night, Yaakov. Enjoy the Super Bowl. No, we get that. In Europe, it's not much of a Super Bowl. Thank you for joining us. So again, done in columns. So very neat and very easy for students to be commenting on each other's work. Okay, I'm going to show you Padlet that looks a little more like the Lino. The way though, oh, if you didn't learn Padlet, I'll just show it to you again. The way that you comment on a Padlet is you double click. When you double click on the Padlet, you get a box which allows you to post pictures, post videos, write comments, or create your own recordings, your own videos, your own links. So here, it was a discussion about which group of soldiers fight in the IDF and which surprised you. So this was not so much in the column format. This is kind of just postings all over, more similar to the Lino. But because it's not on those stickums that can go one on top of each other,
it is a little bit neater and more laid out. And again, you can lay out, just like you can on a Lino, you can lay out pictures, you can lay out text, and you can lay out video. Like, has everybody seen this Superman video? Has everyone seen this? This is just like the best video.
I'm only one call away. I'll be there to save the day. Superman got nothing on me. I'm only one call away.
One unit has become legendary, the Israeli medical unit.
We did everything that we can to be as fast as possible on ground.
Israel's only the world's 152nd biggest country, but it's always one of the first to send disaster.
Okay, so one of the nice things you can do in a Padlet is just like Gabby did on that Google form, is engage students right away and got them thinking with a video, is you can put up a video that can bring up emotions, it can engender thought, you can have your students creating based on the video. So it's a lot of different mediums of learning can be used on the Padlet. Is also collaborative in multiple ways in the kind of mediums we can use in the Padlet, on students being able to have tasks where they have to comment on each other's work on the Padlet. And a Padlet can be used also in real time, synchronous, or you can use it asynchronously and then come back and look at the Padlet all together when you're next together. Okay, these next two Padlets I'm going to just put for you in the chat, and you guys can kind of go on them and take a couple of minutes to look through them. This one is more of a Hebrew school type of a Padlet. Oh, that is definitely not. Okay, this one is more of a Hebrew school type of Padlet. The first one that I put there for you, and the next one is more of a Padlet that we would use in more in-depth teaching about Hanukkah. Okay, so you have both of those Padlets in the chat, and you can open them up. And again, you can scroll down and see that videos are embedded, texts are embedded. So, like Lori pointed out, we say the Lino and the Padlet are both collaborative boards. We used to actually use the Lino more because the Padlet was much less sophisticated. But I would say in the past year, the Padlet has continuously upgraded and added and added and added. And now the Padlet has become a more user-friendly, certainly a more educator-friendly collaborative learning board. Okay, so why use Google Drive? Vote for your favorite use. Because it's all in one place, because it's easy to share, because it's to collaborate, or because you can use it anywhere with Wi-Fi.
All of it.
All of it. Okay, that's my vote. I'm with Lori. Who else? Sarah, Gabby?
I don't know.
All of the above.
All
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so these are definitely, I mean, already you've seen Google Form, you've seen Google Slides, and Google Doc is also amazing. So, I mean, that really helps you chunk a text when you get to Google Doc. So we sometimes get, enamored of some of the more glamorous things that are out there, like a Wiser, and we forget about Google Form. But these are very simple, very easy tools to use, easy to give your educators. You know, when we went back to that first logistics Padlet, easy to teach your educators how to use, easy to get your students on, and easy to reach our goals of critical thinking, higher level learning, creating, and collaborative learning. Okay, ins and outs of Google Drive. We can share it with parents, with teachers, with students, and we can choose if our students only view, if they edit, if they can comment. We get to control and to choose how it's used. Okay, I see that all of you got how to use and how to access Google Forms and Google Slides. But if you didn't for some reason, when Lori sends you the link, just send her a note to send you the slide, and she'll send you the slide where there are extensive directions on using all of the Google apps. So I'll just like take you to it quickly so you see. But if you want a breakdown of exactly how to use and create Google Docs, spreadsheets, presentations, it's step by step. It's like 7 pages, step by step, very simple, very easy to access, very easy to use. And Lori will be very happy to share that with you. Okay, so collaborative learning. What are the ramifications for our teachers, our teaching, our students with collaborative learning?
Well, it gives everybody a voice. I mean, it's very nice because it gives everybody a voice sort of in a very quick way that students don't have to, you know, some people speak really slowly, but this is a way that students could just comment at their own pace.
Right, I think, Lori, it was you who said in the beginning of the class that today we shoot for differential learning, really meeting everybody's needs. I think you said it beautifully. We bring everyone in, we give them a voice, and we allow them to express themselves and achieve their goals with collaborative learning. Anything else, Sarah, Gabby?
I remember last year or a few years ago in my school, we had this course about writing, and they were saying how when you have students when everyone has to write something down, then there's no like cold calling and students don't feel like nervous or intimidated. And I kind of feel like that ties in here where everyone has to do something. Unless, I don't know, maybe you don't have to do it like on the spot itself. Everyone has, you know, especially if it's asynchronous and kids are like kind of doing it. But they all have a voice, and it's not necessarily a speaking out in front of the class voice. Even though in the collaborative learning, I feel like they're still presenting in front of everyone, but I find it less threatening for students who would find that like intimidating.
Absolutely. And it still gives, meaning there's a time when students might want to, your students who enjoy might want to read things out loud. Your students who are quieter might feel so comfortable to comment and add their ideas and their voice about other people's work when they would never speak up in class. So absolutely. Okay. So I think you just said this, Gabby. You summed it up beautifully. And Lori, you each said aspects of this. With collaborative learning, every voice counts. Mm-hmm. So we can begin to increase our students' engagement by meeting every student's needs. The students who are going to be out there and the first to jump in and the first to create and who it's going to come very easily to, a student who might be more hesitant, and a student for whom it might be more difficult. When we begin to think of our learning and adding the pieces of collaborative learning to our teaching. Okay, so we're going to end today by, have you guys gone into a today's meet yet?
I think we did one time.
Okay, so I'm going to put the link in the chat for this today's meet. I'll just review with you quickly how to sign in. It's very simple. Today's Meet is a great collaborative tool for your students. It allows you to introduce topics. It allows you to do a quick reflection, a quick analysis. Okay, you all have the link. And to go into it, Today's Meet, all you do is you type your name where it says nickname, you click join, and then you can type your message and put in say. So just to reflect for a few minutes on the tools that we looked at today, on what you're excited to use and what you see as easily accessible to you, as anything you might see as challenging.
Can't hear you.
Thank you, whoever wrote. Thank you, Sarah. If anybody has any last comments or questions.
You know, I'm sorry, I kind of lost it, and then I came back into the Zoom meeting. So I do have a question, though. Do you think that, like, I see this is really great when kids are all working together, but if you have kids working like one-on-one with a tutor, could you see them all still collaborating on the same collaboration tool, be it a Padlet or something, even though they're not actually in the same, they're not doing it simultaneously with other kids?
Absolutely. The way that you would have to do it, meaning if they're never together.
Yeah, I'm thinking about how to do this with kids who are online. I don't really want them to be online together because they have half an hour with the tutor. So I'd like the tutor to be the one kind of, you know, using that time fully, but I'd love them to use some of the collaboration boards so that they can go there and see what other kids say.
Okay, does anybody have an idea about that based on what we saw already today?
Well, you could certainly, I mean, you could use all of these.
I'm just going to mute you, Lori, because you have a feedback on your microphone. You could certainly be using Google Slides, where students can be commenting on each other very, very easily. And as they add their slides and they comment, they can be doing that with their tutor, and everybody's collaborating and getting the feedback. You could do the same thing with the Padlet, where Padlet, you know, sometimes I use a Padlet, and we'll go back to it, and I share like the work I create with fellow staff members, and someone else might use it. And I was just on a Padlet with my students, and one of my students goes, "Wait a minute, we didn't write that. Somebody wrote that 21 days ago." I go, "Yeah, but look how brilliant it was. Let's read that." It was like a very insightful comment, and we didn't even know who wrote the comment. It wasn't even from our class, and we learned from that student. So you absolutely could be using both the Padlet and the Google Slides. And the nice thing about Google Slides is when you have those little comment boxes, it's very bullet. It really stands out, and students really get a sense of people looking at their work and responding to their work, and they get to respond to other students' work. So for sure. Any other? So I just want to remind you guys, I know I was muted for a minute, that you were going to go back to the digital Netiquette slideshow, and you were going to create a slide to put on the haiku. That'll be your sample for Google Slides for this week. Unless you have a beautiful slideshow, please don't feel limited. Anything else you're creating a slideshow about, you could share those samples as well. And if you want to create a Padlet and put that on the haiku as well. Frozen again. Okay, so then thank you very much, guys. Lori will be in touch with the recording of tonight, with the directions for the Google apps, and with directions for next week. So thank you. Good night.
Great, thank you.